I watched from the window of my dorm room as campus security loaded Madison's boxes into her parents' station wagon. She was crying, claiming she was the victim of a hostile environment, but the expulsion letter in her pocket said otherwise. For 6 months, she had tried to ruin my academic career by accusing me of racism because of how I slept. But in the end, she didn't just lose her room. She lost her reputation, her standing at the university, and exposed a 3-year pattern of targeting minority students that the administration had been sweeping under the rug. But to understand how a sleeping position toppled a serial manipulator, you have to go back to the first night she turned the lights on at 2 o'clock a.m. I am a pre-med student from Japan. I study hard, I keep to myself, and I have severe acid reflux, which means my doctor strictly instructed me to sleep on my left side to keep my stomach acid down. That means I face the wall. 3 weeks into living with Madison, I woke up to a flashlight in my face. Madison was standing over my bed, fully dressed. I always sleep facing the wall, she whispered, her voice trembling. Is that a cultural thing? I sat up, squinting, completely confused. I just sleep on my left side, I said. It's for my digestion. It feels like rejection, she said. Every single night, you literally turn your back on me. I've been reading about body language. Turning away from someone in a shared space is a microaggression. It creates a hostile environment. I thought she was joking. I rolled over and went back to sleep, but she wasn't joking. The next week, I woke up to the sound of a camera shutter. Madison was documenting me while I slept. When I confronted her, she crossed her arms and said, I need proof. You're deliberately avoiding me. You refuse to face me, even when you're unconscious. That is a subconscious bias manifesting as exclusion. 2 days later, I was summoned to a meeting with our resident advisor Josh. Madison had printed out the photos. She had created a literal collage of me sleeping, organized by date, labeled evidence of systematic exclusion. Madison feels unsafe, Josh said, looking exhausted. She says your body language is aggressive. I'm asleep, I replied flatly. I cannot be aggressive when I am unconscious. I have a medical condition. Then prove it, Madison snapped. If you don't have a doctor's note, it's a choice. And you're choosing to exclude me. The university actually made me do it. I had to miss a chemistry lab, to go to the student health center and get a signed letter from a doctor explaining that gravity helps acid reflux. I felt humiliated explaining to a confused physician that my roommate thought my esophagus was racist. I turned the note in. I thought that would end it. Instead, Madison escalated. She filed a formal complaint with housing services, claiming I was weaponizing medical privilege to dismiss her lived experience. She cried in floor meetings. She told everyone in the dorm that I refused to coexist with people who were different from me. People started looking at me differently in the hallway. I stopped sleeping. I would just lie there, staring at the wall, terrified to move, terrified that if I twitched, I'd be slapped with a hate crime accusation. That was the turning point. I realized this wasn't about my sleep. It was about power. And I stopped crying and started acting like a pre-med student. I started researching. I went to Josh, the RA, late one night. I didn't ask about me. I asked about her. Has she done this before? I asked. Josh looked at the floor. I can't discuss other students. You hesitated, I said. That means yes. I went to the housing coordinator, Miss Palmer. I formally requested a review of Madison's housing history under the university as safe living policy. I argued that if I was being investigated for creating a hostile environment, I had a right to know if there was a precedent. It took a week, but because Madison had filed official complaints against me, the files were technically relevant to my defense. Miss Palmer handed me a redacted file, but the pattern was clear as day. Freshman year, Madison requested a transfer because her roommate, a girl with a Korean surname, cooked smelly food that made Madison feel unsafe. Sophomore year, Madison filed 3 complaints against a Latina roommate for being aggressive and loud when she spoke on the phone. Junior year, me. She had never had a white roommate, and every single woman of color she lived with was forced out or transferred within a semester. I took the file and placed it on Miss Palmer's desk. Madison doesn't have a problem with my sleeping position, I said. She has a problem with my race. She uses university buzzwords like microaggression and hostile environment to weaponize the administration against minority students, and you have been helping her do it for 3 years. Miss Palmer read the file in silence. Her face went pale. She picked up the phone. I need the dean of students. Now, the investigation took 2 weeks. They interviewed the previous roommates. It turned out Madison had bullied them all with the exact same language, weaponizing her tears to get what she wanted. Madison was removed from housing effective immediately. She was required to attend mandatory mediation training and was placed on academic probation for filing false reports. When she tried to post about it on social media, claiming she was being silenced, the previous roommates' girls she thought were long gone commented with receipts, emails, and photos of their own. She deleted her account an hour later. I still sleep facing the wall, but now, I sleep soundly, knowing that the only thing I am turning my back on is a toxic person who finally got exactly the attention she was looking for.